They ignored my warning. A $2 million mistake cost them everything. It started with a whisper of dread, a premonition clinging to the back of my mind. I knew something was terribly wrong. At Sterling Solutions, the retail giant I dedicated over a decade to, I was more than just a cybersecurity analyst. I was the last line of defense, the digital sentinel guarding their kingdom. And my gut was screaming. I was sitting in my cubicle, fingers dancing across the keyboard, lost in the labyrinthine code of our server. Officially, I was a cybersecurity analyst, but unofficially, I was the guardian of their digital realm. One afternoon, a blip, a malignant anomaly, flickered on my radar. It was a script, hidden deep within the server's recesses, a seemingly harmless file. But as I delved into its code, a cold dread washed over me. This wasn't just some stray piece of code. It was a skeleton key, capable of unlocking everything. Databases, financial records, HR files, knowing was safe. I didn't hesitate. I bolted from my chair and rapped urgently on Jill's office door. She looked up, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes, and waved me inside. Jill had a maddeningly relaxed approach to everything, and to date, it felt like a personal affront. "Hey, Jill, I need you to see this," I said, pivoting my laptop so she could see the script. She barely glanced at it. "What am I looking at?" she asked, her voice laced with impatience. "It's a backdoor script," I said, my voice tight. "If someone gets their hands on this, it could mean a complete data breach. Customer info, employee details, everything." Leaning back, her expression bordering on boredom, she sighed. "You're saying there's a vulnerability?" "Yes," I practically shouted, the frustration boiling over. "And it's not a small one. I need permission to quarantine the server, dig deeper, and figure out how far this thing goes." Jill shook her head, a dismissive smile playing on her lips. "Ray, you always jump to the worst case scenario. Don't go setting off alarms unnecessarily." "Jill, I'm telling you," I insisted. "I'm not forming in my stomach. We need to treat this seriously. If someone exploits this, we're facing a catastrophic crisis." She rolled her eyes. "Fine, I'll mention it to Cameron." Cameron, the head of IT, whose cybersecurity knowledge barely extended beyond knowing how to spell the word, was a master of corporate jargon, wielding it like a weapon to mask his incompetence. I felt the walls closing in. "Can I just talk to him directly?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Jill glared at me as if I had suggested painting her office neon pink. "Ray, we have a chain of command. Trust the process." But I didn't trust the process. I knew what was at stake. I found Cameron by the coffee machine, pouring himself a cup. "Cameron, got a minute?" He looked up, radiating annoyance. "What's up, Ray?" I took a breath. I found something in the system. "Oh, yeah," he said, stirring his coffee. "Jill told me about that. Some sort of script, or whatever, right?" She said you were overreacting. "It's not overreaction," I said, my voice hardening. "We're in serious trouble." Cameron scoffed. "Ray, we've got protocols. This is amateur hour. If it was that serious, that's why I'm telling you," I said, my jaw clenching. "I'm the one who monitors this stuff, and I'm telling you it's serious. We need to take action now." He gave a dismissive laugh, patting me on the shoulder as if I were a child. "Relax, Ray. You're stressing yourself out over nothing." I walked away, a volcano of fury erupting inside me. I had sounded the alarm, and no one cared. My hands were tied, because challenging the chain of command could have ruined me. I had a mortgage to pay, with barely any savings to my name, so I waited. A week later, the summons came. I was called into a meeting. A sliver of hope flickered within me. Maybe they finally took me seriously. But when I walked in and saw Jill, Cameron, and Mark, the CEO, seated around the table, I knew this wasn't going to be good. The air in the room crackled with unspoken tension. Sterling Solutions wasn't made of human beings anymore, only cold stone. "Ray," Mark began, his smile a hollow mask that didn't reach his eyes. "We've been looking at your performance lately." I felt my stomach plummet. "Performance?" "Yes," he continued, his voice dripping with corporate condescension. "We've noticed you've been, well, raising alarms unnecessarily. We need our employees to focus on actual issues, not hypothetical situations. We're wasting resources over every little issue." "Hypothetical," I repeated, barely able to contain my rage. I was doing my job effective immediately. Jill interjected, a smug smirk playing on her lips. "We're reallocating your responsibilities. You'll no longer be in charge of threat monitoring." I stared at her, the ground dissolving beneath my feet. "It's not a demotion," Cameron snickered. "It's a reassignment. I will handle your previous tasks until we find a replacement." I wanted to scream, to throw my resignation in their faces, but I couldn't. I needed this job, so I swallowed my pride and took it, feeling as though I had just been sentenced to corporate purgatory. For the next month, I was condemned to perform soul-crushing, menial tasks that were light years beneath my skill level. I went from protecting the company's digital assets to updating spreadsheets and checking email spam folders. It was humiliating. Everyone could see I had been cast aside. One day, Nadine, one of the few co-workers I actually trusted, caught me in the break room. "Hey," she said, offering a sympathetic smile. "How are you holding up? Living a dream?" I replied, the sarcasm dripping. She shook her head, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "You know about the breach, right?" "What breach?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. "Last night, someone hacked into the customer database. Got everything. Credit cards, addresses." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Is it the backdoor script?" "Looks like it," she confirmed, her voice grin. "Cameron and Jill are in full panic mode. They're trying to keep it quiet, but it's a complete show." I couldn't believe it. I had warned them. That afternoon, Mark called an emergency meeting. I took my time getting to the conference room, saving the moment. When I finally walked in, the tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Mark, Jill, and Cameron were already seated, their faces pale and drawn. Cameron, usually radiating an air of arrogant complacency, looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Ray," Mark said, forcing a smile, "please sit." I sat, folding my arms across my chest. "What's this about?" He cleared his throat. "As you might have heard, we've had a situation with the customer database." I remained silent, allowing the tension to build. "It appears there was a security breach. Customer data was compromised. We need to get this under control immediately, and we believe you're the best person for the job." I couldn't help but laugh, a harsh, bitter sound. "You need me after you demoted me for overreacting?" Mark's face flushed crimson. "Ray, we realize we may have underestimated the situation, but we're in a crisis now, and we need your expertise to secure the system and contain the damage." I leaned back, a strange sense of satisfaction washing over me. "So, you want me to clean up your mess?" "Yes," he said, gritting his teeth, struggling to maintain his composure. "If you could get this under control, we're willing to discuss reinstating you and giving you a raise. Let's put the past behind us." I looked at each of them, their eyes filled with barely concealed desperation. They knew they were in over their heads, and they were scrambling. "What exactly is in this for me?" Mark stammered. "We're offering you your position back. A slight bump in pay." "I'm sorry, Mark, but I think you're forgetting something. I warned you about this. You humiliated me." Jill chimed in, attempting to smooth things over. "Ray, we're admitting we made a mistake. We're asking for your help to fix it. Let's move forward, okay?" My patience snapped. "A mistake? This isn't a mistake. You didn't just ignore my warnings. You actively silenced me. And now you want me to be the hero." Silence descended upon the room. None of them could meet my gaze. I could feel the weight of everything I had endured. And suddenly, I realized that I held all the power. "You know what?" I said, finally standing up and gathering my things. "I'll consider helping, but here's my counteroffer. I want my position back with a title upgrade, a significant raise, and complete authority over security decisions. And if I smell even a whiff of you disregarding my recommendations, I'm gone. Take it or leave it. This is your only shot, Mark. You need me more than I need you right now." He stared at me, his face a mask of anger and helplessness. Finally, he nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Good," I replied, turning to leave. But just before I walked out, I paused and looked over my shoulder. "And for the record, I told you so." Jill and Cameron's faces went pale. Mark looked as if he'd just swallowed a mouthful of battery acid. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out of the room, leaving them to stew in their own incompetence. Over the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly to contain the damage. The breach was massive, even worse than I had anticipated. The hackers had sold customer information on the dark web. During this time, Cameron and Jill were relegated to the sidelines, their opinions ignored. Mark hovered anxiously, offering empty words of encouragement. For the first time in years, I could feel the shift in dynamics. For once, I wasn't a scapegoat. Then came the lawsuits. Multiple customers filed suit against Sterling Solutions, alleging gross negligence in protecting their data. News outlets descended on the company, their coverage relentless. Sterling's reputation was in shambles. One evening, I received a call from Nadine. She'd been a quiet supporter throughout this mess, one of the few who saw the truth. She was thrilled to see me back in my position, but her voice held a note of warning. "Ray," she said, "I don't know if you've seen the news." "I've seen the news, of course," I replied. "They're looking for a scapegoat." She continued, her voice hushed. "Do you think they're going to try to pin this on you?" "I don't trust them." Her concerns were spot on. A few days later, Mark summoned me to his office. He looked exhausted, dark shadows under his eyes. All his usual arrogance was gone. "Ray," he began, gesturing weakly for me to sit. I remained standing, arms crossed. "What is it?" "We're facing a significant backlash from this breach," he said, his voice strained. I raised an eyebrow. "You're not about to suggest I take the fall, are you?" Mark shifted uncomfortably. "Look, the board wants someone to take responsibility. You were in charge of security. You mean after you demoted me, after you ignored every single warning I gave you?" My voice was louder than I intended, but I didn't care. The rage I'd held back for so long was bubbling over. "We're trying to salvage the company here," he pleaded. "Salvage the company?" I scoffed. "Mark, if anyone should take the fall for this, it's you. You and Jill and Cameron. You were the ones who ignored every red flag and pushed me out when I tried to do my job. He remained silent, staring at the floor. You want a scapegoat? Mark, try looking in the mirror. If you even think about pinning this on me, I've got emails, records, witness of the proof I need to bury you. You are an amateur with zero knowledge about the subject at hand. He didn't respond, just sat there, defeated. And as I turned and walked out, I knew that my long game had started. The following week, the board finally stepped in. Mark was forced to resign. The company announced a leadership restructuring in a desperate attempt to save face. But the damage was done. Unable to regain the public's trust after the data breach, Sterling Solutions crumbled. Meanwhile, I took my story public. I was approached by a local journalist who had heard about the Sterling scandal, and I told her everything. I didn't sugarcoat a thing. I wanted people to know the truth about how Sterling Solutions treated its employees and handled security. The article went viral, and suddenly, I was receiving job offers from companies who wanted someone with the courage to stand up for what was right. It didn't take long for a headhunter to reach out on behalf of a high-profile cybersecurity consulting firm in California. They wanted me as the head of security strategy, promising respect and autonomy. I didn't hesitate. Before I left Austin, I had a small farewell gathering. Nadine showed up, along with a few other colleagues who had supported me through the rough times. As we sat around, laughing and reminiscing, Nadine raised her glass. Here's to you, Ray, she said, to new beginnings and success. To justice, I replied, raising my glass in return. As I boarded my flight to California, the humiliation, the betrayal it had all led to this. A chance to start fresh, so I would be valued, so that respected the importance of vigilance and integrity, so I could finally do my work without compromise. A few months later, I got an email from a former Sterling employee. The message was short and to the point. Sterling Solutions just declared bankruptcy. Guess karma really does come around. I closed the email with a smile. A part of me was shocked that it had come to this. Declaring bankruptcy was the final nail in the coffin for the company. The next day, I received a call from Nadine. Hey Ray, she started trying to keep her tone light. We're officially jobless. I'm sorry Nadine, I replied, full of guilt. If I'd have known it would get this far, maybe I would have done something differently. This isn't on you, Nadine responded. They made their own bed. They ignored your warnings and put all of us at risk. We were just collateral damage. We talked for a while about what had happened. Eventually she said, I'm thinking of moving on to maybe looking for something new after staying in the aftermath of this mess. You should, I told her. There are companies out there that value people like you who actually know how to do their jobs without the drama and respect you deserve. After we hung up, I spent a long time reflecting on the situation. It taught me something, even if it was worth it in the end. In my new role at the consulting firm in California, I vowed that I would never be silent in the face of negligence or danger. In fact, cybersecurity, teaching them to recognize and address warning signs and the importance of empowering their teams to speak up became one of my top priorities. My experience at Sterling became a case study on what not to do, and I was invited to speak at industry conferences and cybersecurity panels. I was helping to change the industry. It was cathartic. I shared my story. At my last job, I told the executive I watched talented people be ignored and sidelined for speaking the truth. We had warning after warning, and they refused to act. In the end, they paid the ultimate price, not just financially, but with their reputation. When it was over, a woman approached me and spoke about her troubles. I hope I'm able to follow through with those suggestions. I had to find a way to start all over, faded from the headlines. But every so often I come across security analysts thanking me for doing the right thing. Sterling's story was no longer just about a security breach. It was about what can happen when companies refuse to listen to the people they're supposed to trust. One evening as I was walking home, I received another email from a former Sterling employee. Ray, thanks for your story. I think we just dodged a bullet because of you. As I began in this new role, I started teaching the CEOs and CFOs on the importance of transparency within niche corporate culture. At the grand moment of revenge, I thought I didn't just rebuild my career. I also was one of the reasons cybersecurity became a top priority for companies. I felt it was worth it, but maybe I could have done better. I am curious if you guys believe it was worth the damage based on the details I have presented to you, and I welcome your thoughts and opinions on how this could have been handled in an alternative manner. Remember to remove the asterisk above and replace it with the appropriate symbols.